Hello, peoples of the internet. I just went crazy with a camera for some reason. Either way, here we have our lots examine, and you'll see, other than looking kind of like a BMW X6, it's just overall a fairly decent package, although there are two amendments I want to make to the design. Firstly, the front tyres are far too wide. I mean, I can still have wide front tyres, just not quite stupidly wide like this. And also the body. As much as I love the saloon kind of body, it isn't good for weight balance. You'll see we have 53.3% front. Probably not helped by the fact we've got a twin turbo V6, but that's not the point. The point is that I'm thinking if I change this to a hatchback, I could get much closer to perfect weight balance. Maybe even an estate could provide better weight balance. Either way, I'm going to change that now. We do the design and then I'll return when I've done all that. So it looks like I have some explaining to do. I also have a rear wing to add. But you might wonder why my attempt at a hatchback has ended up looking like a really bad Chinese copy of a BMW Mini. Well, the reason for that is that I lost my original design, which was actually half decent. Although, to be honest, I think the rear on this is actually better than the old one. But still, that's what I've got. I know it looks horrible, but quite frankly, it's not important as long as it has vaguely the realistic aerodynamic features of a real car, it'll do the job. Also, I've got my almost straight up windscreen, as I do love on my cars. And I've moved the front end backwards for better weight balance, as well as moving the back end backwards for better weight balance. Anyway, I'll add some more stuff and then return. Now what I've done here is I've added the all-important wing, I've put 315 tyres on the rear as well as 275s on the front, which I'm hoping is a good balance. I need to do some final adjustment with that, but the basics is there. And the tail has been extended more. I know it looks weird, it's basically an estate without a rear window there. But then we didn't have an actual estate body with this car, so I've just decided to use the best kind of balance I can with the hatchback. We'll see the weight balance is now 52.2 front. It's better than it was, but it's still not perfect. So I'm going to keep adjusting things. So what we have now is a 2-litre V8. I believe it was 2.6 before. Yet we're still managing to make 478 horsepower from it, and decent enough 808 for economy, as well as 63.4 for reliability. It doesn't excel at anything, but as a performance engine, I feel it's good enough. Interestingly, while power has stayed about the same as it was before, we have actually slightly improved economy. And if I remember correctly, that's not actually too far off the naturally aspirated engine that made 300 horsepower. So in a way, we are already building a better vehicle, although most of the componentry is the same as we left off with. Now here we have a bit of an issue. We've got 27.2 wheel spin, which is far from ideal. And we're already on excellent tyres. You'll see we can go with semi-slicks, but it doesn't make a huge difference. I'm going to have to think of ways to sort this out. Now this seems like as close to a solution as we're ever going to get. I've managed to get the 0 to 60 to a reasonable 5.5 seconds, the miles per gallon to 21 on the spot, and wheel spin to 14.2. You'll see if I adjust the spacing just a little more, we can jump up to 19.2% wheel spin, so that's why it's set as it is. 14.2 is bad, but it doesn't seem ridiculously bad as it has been on various times in the past. And the weight balance has perhaps magically become under 52%. I actually believe it's the same weight balance as we started with the NA engine, and all it's taken is over 100 kilograms of heavy stuff to do that. Anyway, I'm happier with this than I was. I think I am going to enlarge on the front aero though a little and then adjust the front aero, as I'm not sure. Yeah, now the front downforce is far too strong. With the downforce adjusted, I've now ended up with 48.6 kilograms on the front, 55.9 on the rear, which seems good enough for me. Now I have tuned the suspension setup for sport, so that's all good. The suspension itself, I'm going to change that. We have all the assists, because let's face it, it's a dangerous machine, you're going to need them. We don't need too advanced safety though, that adds weight. Yeah, 75 kilos, yeah. It's supposed to be light. We have some safety, just not loads of it. Anyway, standard springs on a almost 500 horsepower supercar now. Doesn't seem perfect. So we're going to go with something fancier. I'm thinking we'll go with active sport. I mean, I don't like overteching all my cars, but then sometimes you just need it. And we've already added so many assists, you know, I can't really be bothered with the reliability concerns and everything. It's also a twin turbo, so it's not going to be a reliable car, but fast it should be. Although having said that, it's still 71.9, so it's better than some things I've built over the past times of years and everything. Also, we have a purple king badge. Pink? No. I added that as well later. Although, when I added it first, it didn't look cheap and Chinese. Now, because the rest of the car is so poor looking, it kind of just makes it look like a really fake Toyota or something. And miles per gallon has leapt down thanks to that suspension system. And that probably means the balance has changed, oh dear. Just double check the suspension setup. And yeah, balance has changed, not by a stupid amount though, and we have added a little weight. But anyway, I think we're ready to take it around the Nürburgring, and let's try and beat the Zonda this time. So it's set a 7:46 time, which is about 2 seconds slower than before. Still, however, I believe we can upgrade the engine a bit more. So I'm going to completely change it actually for an inline 4. Hopefully it should weigh a little less, and hopefully we should be able to get more power from it. But at this point I can only hope, since I have taken a good car and made it slower, and that's not what anyone wants to do. To be fair, on this car, the engine does have stupid levels of turbo lag. I didn't think about that, really. I just thought about power, and look where it's got me. So, here we have our turbocharged inline 4. It's slightly lighter than before. I think most of it comes from a smaller exhaust, to be entirely honest. Either way, we're making slightly less power than before. It is a very similar displacement. I think even 2 cc's larger. And you'll see we've gone with air-to-air large for the intercooler, because water-to-air medium is actually less effective. Usually the largest intercooler is the most effective, and if there is a water intercooler that's as large, it will be the most effective, but in this case there isn't, so that's the best we can do. I'm going to continue messing with this to see if I can pull a little more power out of it, but I don't have great hopes for it. I have already done a lot of tuning on it. I've actually managed to get slightly more power still, 470 from this engine, and I've lowered the max boost slightly, as well as raising the ignition timing. That's how I got the power. The compression is very, very low actually. I tried messing with the ignition timing and stuff because it avoids me having to mess with the compression. It's almost like an extension of compression, hard as it is to see. I mean, I know it's not the best thing to lower, but I do not want to raise fuel mixture. The moment I start doing that, fuel economy goes out the window. As a matter of fact, this is more economical though than the V6 we made by about 90 points, which is always good. And naturally, it's an inline 4, so it's crazier and I like it more. Time to get back to work then. So here we have our finished engine. I've just now changed the conrods to I-beam steel. It does slightly reduce the smoothness and increase the weight by half a kilogram, but I think for the money we're saving, it's a decent enough compromise. You'll see the compression is still fairly low. Yeah, I managed to push for 1 extra horsepower here. It's not much, but it's something. And the power output doesn't seem too bad in the grand scheme of things. Just if only I could get a water air large intercooler, I feel I could match a V6, just not like this. It's running almost 30 psi, that is a lot of boost, but then how else do we make the power? Lag isn't actually too ridiculous. I mean, it looks horrible, but it sure is a fair amount better than that V6 we had before. Even if this doesn't have the penultimate power advantage, it's just a better overall engine, I feel. Probably cheaper as well, thanks to those conrods. The RPM limit is 9100 and the ignition timing is 31. I know it's very low. That's how it makes the power. I mean, that's how the car wants to make the power. I could try changing the injection, but in the past that's never helped me. I've gone for a performance intake. You'll see there, we get 5 horsepower from it. I just want the power. We can raise the RPM, but it doesn't affect the performance index and it reduces reliability, which also doesn't really seem any worse than the V6. It could just be that I've spent longer tuning it, honestly. But this seems like the better engine. We can restrict power. It does seem like it's blocking a tiny amount of power because it peaks higher there, but is it worth the wait? Yes, I will permit it in this case. Wow, the weight can leap up with the exhaust. I say leap up, it's a couple of kilograms, but I'm trying to beat a V6 for weight, so any advantage I can have is always useful. Can we actually change the RPM now? Probably not. Oh no, we can. That improves the performance index now. There we go, I'm improving my engine. So we now make probably 471.2 instead of 0.1 or something. It's extra power either way. 5 valve per cylinder on this engine, which is always useful. And I think that's what we've got. So let's move on to the testing phase. For the gearing, I have quite long gears actually. They allow decent economy, still over 20 miles per gallon. But hey, it's a sports car. To get that kind of miles per gallon from this kind of vehicle isn't too bad actually. It does 0 to 62 in under 6 seconds. Comparing this to supercars, it's not the most impressive engine, but then it does maintain wheel spin at 9.6%, so it should be relatively controllable off the line with under 10% wheel spin. The differential, I think we're going to go with electric, since we're throwing so much power through the wheels of this thing. And that's actually cured the wheel spin a lot. Who would have known it's so simple? Anyway, I'm going to do some more tuning and then I'll return. Here we have the final gearing setup then. Thanks to that electric differential, I've been able to get 5.3 seconds 0 to 60, slightly better miles per gallon, and still under 10% wheel spin, which is always nice. Now we have semi-slicks naturally. When you're dealing with so much power and so much sudden torque, you do want the best tyres around. The rear tyres are 315s, the fronts are 275s, as you saw there. I can't make them any wider. I've already flared out the arch as much as they'll go, to the point it actually looks stupid, and that's all we need. Now the vehicle is using carbon ceramic brakes on the front. Again, it is for the best when we're dealing with this level of performance. And 2-piston vented discs on the rear, since that seemed to be what the market wants. Although I'm thinking we could go with carbon ceramic all round, but if we don't need it. The rear brakes don't do most of the work, remember, it's the fronts that do. We've got a downforce under tray, we've got the wing angle, oddly very precise, and we actually need less cooling than the inline 4, that's fascinating. I wouldn't have expected that to be the case. I think we'll have 25 or maybe even 20 going to the rear. Brakes, sorry. Brakes and rear. How crazy you have to be to confuse those two. Have a bit more on the engine to make sure it's fully smooth and everything. And so there we go. Now I have to check the transmission again. Now everything works. Close enough. We have a sport interior, 5 seats, basic infotainment, all this stuff same as before. Basic safety. And we have some active sport suspension, as you saw I changed that before. Just double check it's retuned for the new weight balance, which is 51.6 front. Yeah, I peeked ahead because I couldn't resist. Which I think may actually be the best balance we've had on this vehicle. So, in all of that, despite having probably the world's craziest inline 4 in here, well, not quite, but one of the world's craziest inline 4s, we have built a decently balanced vehicle. And, you know, I'm happy with the balance improvements. It has got a disadvantage for power, though. Response is better, power is worse, top speed is slightly better. I think we'll be okay, but it's best to take it around the track and see how it does anyway. So I'll return when I have a time. I've returned to the engine since the other engine couldn't create a better time than my best one before that. So I've changed this engine. I've taken the size for starters, it's 2.2 litres now specifically. And then I've basically adjusted all the turbos and stuff. Interestingly, I was able to go for a slightly smaller exhaust. That's stopped the weight being as ridiculous as it perhaps could have been. But hey, I'm making a 515 horsepower inline 4. I'm happy enough with this. The one thing I've got to adjust is the performance index. We can actually lower the RPM, perhaps that's natural with it being a larger engine, but either way, we've actually kept some of our reliability despite it being a more powerful engine. I don't think I've done too bad. Okay, so here I have my final vehicle. Yeah, you can probably tell it's not the same vehicle in the last clip, or the clips before that even. It is a mid-engine vehicle, transversely mounted engine actually. The 4 seats it's got I decided would be a little more spacey if the engine was transverse, since there should be more space for them theoretically. It would fit in longitudinal. I could even increase the bore and have it in longitudinal, but I didn't want that for passenger room as I've just mentioned. It does have a glued aluminium chassis still. I've changed a few things. It's mid-engine to begin with, and it's got push-rod suspension all around as well as an aluminium body. The reason I've done that is because aluminium can be mass-produced, so it's probably a little cheaper than fiberglass. And push-rod, I didn't want to go with suspension that high-end, but it allowed me to fit those 335 tyres. Yep, the front and rear 335s. This is a wide car though, mind. It's not exactly narrow. The design, yeah, well, you can see, it did look like a Honda Civic from some angles. There, you can kind of see it. Yeah, it's not the best looking vehicle in the world, but I think it's good enough. I added a bonnet vent in the hope of adding half a kilo to the front or something, since it's very, very rear bias for weight. You'll also see the front end just sticks out a lot more, and the rear end is brought in quite a bit. It's all to do with weight balance, naturally. And looks kind of came after. Although I wouldn't do anything that made it look completely horrible, but still. It is all-wheel drive. Again, weight balance is mid-engine, so it moves weight forwards. Here you'll see I've actually got a kind of evolution of the engine. There is a much higher stroke on it to the tune of 238 cc's. It's quite a big engine. The reason I've done that is any smaller and I can't fit the largest water intercooler, which does, I believe, in turn allow me to reach those kinds of speeds over the previous engine. Or horsepower rather. We have got titanium. Yeah, it's running on the limit, so if I don't have any ultra high-end components on it, it will start to fail. We have fairly low compression again. Probably can't get any more power out of it, no. But you'll see it hangs in the balance, all this stuff does. Maybe if I spent stupid amounts of time on it, I could get 550 horsepower, but I'm not willing to do that. There we go, the water air large intercooler. If I made the stroke 1 point smaller, that option would go away, and I would only be left with water air medium or air to air large, neither of which are as effective. So that's why I've done that. The bore and stroke have also changed because of the dimensions. The engine barely fits in the car, let's be honest. And yeah, this is the slightly smaller evolution of the engine. Ignition timing is fairly low. Again, it's to do with making the power and trying to make it somewhat low, although as you'll see, it maxes out very, very late. The RPM limit is at 8600, but I can't rev it any higher because the engine starts to explode. Now, I would like to have some run-off zone, but the only way I would do that is by basically chopping off power, and I don't want that. I'd rather have 544 and have 515 and some drop-off, because I think it's better to have the power than not have the power, personally. We have this exhaust. It's massive, actually. Not much I can do to increase power with that. And the exhaust system is all the same kind of components. 5.5 inches though, that's how many emissions we're chucking out. Although having said that, looking at the economy, for a 500 plus horsepower inline 4 is actually extremely good. I mean, it's not going to rival the likes of super economy engines making 40 horsepower, but for what this is, it's a very, very economical engine, if I can ever say the word, which I seem to struggle with for some reason. I've never struggled saying it before, just now. Anyway, it weighs 160 kilos and it costs $2,200-ish, so I'm going to run it and you can hear it. It's basically turbo noise though. So as you'll see, you can hear some engine noise underneath it, but let's be honest, you're just hearing that turbo. If I can get the right menu up, I'll just show you the turbo system. There we go. And you'll see that is a mighty, mighty turbo. I believe it's running over 30 psi, yeah, 30.87 psi. That is a beefy old turbocharger, and it's probably going to be the first part on the engine to fail, knowing how under pressure it is. If we look at the menu again, you'll see everything is orange and red on that turbocharger. As a matter of fact, I might have to lower the RPM a little more for ideal kind of runnings, because sometimes it can go orange, and I should probably use it for test mode. There we go. Yeah, you'll see, that's only at the very high RPM though, and given how already compromised the engine is, I don't really want to mess with it anymore. You'll see here we've got similar gear ratios to before, they just work. 0 to 62 comes in 3.2 seconds and it makes 21.8 miles per gallon. So say what you want about this, but it has got slightly better miles per gallon than the old car, which is always nice, you know. It's actually heavier than that car and it has all-wheel drive, yet the miles per gallon is still better. I guess it's just evidence of the strength of that engine compared to the previous engine. It's just a much stronger unit. If we look at the RPM as well on the engine, which I forgot to mention before, turbo kicks in at 5,000 RPM. It looks like there's stupid amounts of lag. The reality of it is though, the gearing is set up to sort it out, so you're through the lag before it really becomes an issue. You'll see still, the 0 to 60 time, quite impressive. Still got a dual clutch transmission, although I might actually change that. What weights are we looking at? 63.7. Nah, not a huge difference for weight. I was concerned about that, but it's not stupid. Electric LSD again. We've got 30.1% wheel spin. Now, the power distribution, this is an interesting part. I did play with the power from 30% front to 40% front, and that's 60 to 70 wear, and it did give me various times, but they were all very close, and they were all, I think, a little slower than it would do before. But most crucially, we must remember it is slightly more economical. So these things all go hand in hand. You can't have the economy and the speed, it seems. The tyres are 335s all round. As I said, I messed around with power distribution to try and load them up differently and things. I've not got a stagger, but I'm always under the logic there's tyre width there, let's use it. I think for the reasons of grip, I'm going to say at 60% rear or 40% front now, if I can ever find the correct direction, since, you know, I just love me grip. I'm surprised on semi-slick so it couldn't go quicker, but then we have to look back to the gearing again. It only goes 183. This car, having a 3-litre V6 turbo, if used correctly, could probably go really quick. But with this engine, not so much. I still love it. I mean, I'm a fan of stupidly high PSI inline fours, so I would always be happy with it, but I'm sure there are people who would have seen better in it. Now, one thing we could probably do is use less downforce, but that's all set up now. I didn't really pay much attention to that. And we've not even got the required cooling, but it shouldn't make too much difference. Just take it off the brakes. Sure, that's not a bad idea at all. But this won't affect the aerodynamics at all. This is just, you know, getting it all to work. So, I don't know. I don't think that'll make much difference to track time, to be honest. Such a small amount of aero I forgot to adjust. You'll see here I've got rid of some assists. It just seemed a bit unnecessary, honestly. And you'll see that's kind of a theme I'm going with here. I've simplified everything other than the sway bars, since, you know, cars can get quite sloppy without the correct sway bars. And there's our vehicle. Yeah, just look at that front end. There's not much there, is there? That's why it's so rear biased. Also, it's transverse. That probably doesn't help. But 1440.3 kilograms. Remember, it is an all-wheel drive supercar of sorts, so that's not too ridiculous. 21.8 miles per gallon. Not the most efficient, but for a 544 horsepower engine, it's far from bad. And I've taken it around the test track, as you've seen. The time was more or less the same with the Corvette and Nissan GTR. It's got strangely good weight balance. 40.0 front, 60.0 rear. I did mess around with carbon fibre and stuff, but that reduces weight over a front end, and it makes all that front overhang kind of useless and stuff. Plus, I'm just scared of sending more weight than 60% out of the rear, because we don't want it to do wheelies and all that. But yeah, that's what I've ended up with. Carbon fibre was also expensive. It added something ridiculous like 10,000 to its current state, along with all the electronic bits. But this is simpler, this is cheaper. $40,000 doesn't sound too ridiculous for this kind of car. Fairly competitive in track premium. If we look at other regions, we'll see, again, track premium and, where is it here? Track premium. People see this as a track car though, which is odd. It has got a sport interior and some infotainment. So I question, actually, maybe I would just be better off by basicing everything out. But no, it's a sports car. Regardless of what people think of it, I think it's a sports car. So I'm going to leave it at that. So goodbye, until another day.